So now that we've covered like the basics of Unreal and the stuff that we're going to be end up using, we can take a look at the UMG Editor, which is what we're going to do most of our UI design and kind of implementation in using Unreal. So it's called UMG because it's Unreal Motion Graphics Editor, as far as I remember. So if we take a look at a quick screenshot, and then I'll jump into Engine then to kind of talk you guys through it. So this is like a screenshot of what we're going to end up looking at. So some of it feels like fairly familiar to people who've used Unreal Engine before and they've done like blueprint and scripting, but some of it looks like a little bit different. And the reason is this is a bit more of a graphics editor compared to the other elements that we're kind of used to seeing, like blueprint scripting and stuff like that. So the first thing we look at is up the top left hand corner, you've got kind of like your palette. So this is like searchable components. So this is similar to the components panel inside any other actor blueprint, meaning that everything's divided into kind of existing kind of like little like sections, but if you need to, you can search it as well. So if you're not 100% sure what you're looking for, you can start searching in there. So if you're looking for an image, you can type in there and find it. Underneath that, we got our hierarchy. So this is like really similar to kind of Photoshop is the best way I can describe it. So it's almost like a layers panel or layers palette. So you've got everything in here and it's set up in a hierarchy. So this is where you can parent stuff to other things. You can make things children. You can toggle on and off the visibility. What I would recommend for everyone is get in the habit of naming stuff in this hierarchy, because it becomes very, very awkward, especially if you've got a lot of like smaller canvases that you're looking to turn on and off the visibility of. It's really worth your while getting in the habit of naming stuff. Not just for this, but for moving forward for future projects. If you're working with like different designers or artists, you want to name stuff in an appropriate manner, because down the line it might not be you working on it. So if you were to pass this on to like a technical designer or to pass this over to an artist, you want them to be able to kind of navigate around your files as easy as possible. Underneath that, we've got an animations panel, which in the minute you'll notice on this screenshot is totally empty. I've got one thing in there at the minute called play game. So this again is like context sensitive. So the panel on the right hand side, you'll notice says like no animation selected at the minute. And that's just once we select animations or once we add animations, we can then edit them on a timeline here. The timeline works off like keyframes and just keyframe values. So it's very similar to stuff like After Effects and Premiere. So if anyone has tried them before, even if you've done some animation in Flash, it'll all feel like really, really familiar to you. And then on the right hand side, we've got our details panel. Again, like similar to everything else in Unreal, like when we're in our main editor and stuff like that, our details panel is always context sensitive. So this updates depending on what you selected. So obviously at the minute I've got nothing selected, so there's nothing to show in the details panel. But as we go through stuff, you'll notice that this panel is always different just depending on what you're working on. Above that, we got our designer and a graph view. So at the minute I'm in designer view, whenever we flick in the graph view, it'll feel a lot more familiar to people who've done scripting before. So it'll look like a level blueprint or an actor blueprint. So that's where we'll do like our editing stuff as well. Up the very top here as well, you've got like some different options just in terms of views. We're not going to delve into them too much now, but later on when we do like customized widgets, possibly next week, we might end up messing around with a different screen size as opposed to the one that we're using at the minute. Down here you can see as well, like our screen size is kind of currently shown to us, so it shows us exactly what we're working in, and it shows us how far we're zoomed in as well. Up the very top left hand corner as well, we've just got our compile and save buttons, similar to the other ones that we see in Unreal. So if I pop into Unreal now, so everything that I'm doing today, I'm just doing inside this the basic first person template. So if anyone's not familiar with it, you can just go File, New Project, choose Game. After that, you got a selection of templates you can use. I've just gone with the first person one just because I know it's going to give me a character that I can run around with, but you can use any one of these. If people are comfortable with Unreal and you've kind of maybe studied a module on before and you feel like very comfortable with it, by all means like start a blank one. Or if you want to use one of these existing ones, it's just a really nice, easy jumping off point. Remember, for this module, you don't have to make like an entire game, which is a lot of things people have asked me in practicals. So it's worth your while just choosing one that fits the genre of your game. If you're doing like a third-person RPG, just start with a third-person one. If you're doing a first-person shooter, just use the first-person one. So from here, like some of the stuff that I mentioned in the previous ones is like obviously we've got those different kind of modes that we were looking at, those different type of file types. So What I use a lot in Unreal is the filters. So at the minute on yours might look a little bit like this. You can just pop on the left hand side to show the contents panel. So now I can see like all my folders that sit inside here. With the main one selected, I can now filter this down by different types of class, like different types of assets. So one of the things that I want to look at is the levels that are in here. Okay, so by default, this is like the first person example map. There's also a starter map in here. It's kind of got all this stuff in it. It's got minimal default, which is these bloody chairs that appear in everyone's work. First person one was the one we're just in, and then there's an advanced lighting one. Okay, now this is because when I made this project, I just turned on the starter content. So with a lot of these, we don't really need them. Like I don't really need these for the rest of my project. So I'm just going to get rid of them. So I'm just going to control click on these two, hit delete, and then I'm going to delete the advanced lighting one. Okay, so the first person example map is fine, we'll keep that. So the other thing that we looked at was we were looking at a thing called the game mode. So I'm just searching for this. So this is the first person game mode. If you hover over anything in Unreal as well, it'll tell you where it lives. So you notice here the path is game first person BP / blueprints. So if I wanted to navigate this way, I could find it. So if we double click on this, this is what I was explaining before. So this is just a set of rules that tells our level exactly what we want it to use. Okay, so it says on this particular level, you know, whatever level has this game mode applied to it, this is the first person controller class as player controller. This is the default class. This is the default pawn class. So the pawn is what we're controlling as here. So if I push play, this is the pawn that we're using. So what we're going to end up doing today at some stages, we're actually just going to end up making our own. So the last thing I wanted to kind of run through here is if we were to filter this down, we were going to go with blueprints. We can look at blueprint classes, but we might want to look at other versions. So if we go to like other filters, we can obviously break this down even further. So we go to user interface. This is something that we're probably going to use a lot. So we're going to filter this down by a widget blueprint. So you see at the minute, we don't have a widget blueprint inside this game at all. So the first thing we're going to do in the next video is we're going to set up one from scratch. We're going to make a brand new level as well. And then we're going to start modifying that. And we're going to make some buttons that we can kind of use.